I think we heard the big voice guy. There's never any telling. I was too busy talking. I have no idea.
Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
There he is. There's the cue. Nebraska Preps postgame. You heard that guy. I actually heard him that time too. That's my main man, Jacob Padilla. I am Damon Benning. There is a lot to get to. It's a pretty busy week, right? Yeah. I mean, you got the girls just finished up their state championships. The boys will go tomorrow, and somehow we're going to get it in 30 minutes.
Yeah, crazy week last week. Yeah. That's for sure, especially with the expanded 5-day schedule for the tournament.
Yeah, see, I much rather, I was as a parent on Tuesday watching Millard North and Pius, obviously, but I think as a coach, I would like it as well with the spacing.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think Thursday, Friday, Saturday gives you a best chance to see what teams are really capable of doing, and I kind of like this format.
And a couple coaches have even mentioned that they had a couple players that won after that first day might not have been able to play at full strength that next day. That day off was good for them physically. Somebody else mentally, they were able to kind of reset some things after a rough first day and came back and finished strong. So I think a lot of the coaches are in favor of that kind of a deal. And for me personally, it makes things a little bit easier. It's always tough on that when you have to, especially with A and B going at the same time in different facilities, you got to kind of make your choice about, all right, who am I going to go see? Now, you do still have a few high schools in the mix. You're going to miss out some first-round games, but beyond that, you get to see almost everybody.
Pleasantly surprised. A ton of, I felt like competitive games in the state finals. A lot of times when you get to this stage, you don't always see competitive games, but we were not disappointed this weekend. A lot of single-digit finals, and a couple go down to the last shot, and hanging in a balance. That's kind of the way you want to do it.
The first two of the day decided with 6 seconds left. Yeah. Set a heck of a bar for the rest of the day to live up to, and that's what you want. You start off with a game winner and then some game-winning free throws, so you get to see a few players get a chance to come up clutch there at the end.
Yeah, we'll start in D. We'll go D2. That was Weeping Water and Pleasanton, and I think in that one, it was almost welcome to the big stage, Miss Cave, as that was the first time I think a lot of the state had a chance to see the Omaha Maverick commit in Grace Cave from start to finish.
Yeah, D1 there. That 40-30.
Yeah, I said D2. Yep. Skip around.
Yeah, 40-32 final on that one, and they had a lead for a lot of the way there, and then Pleasanton made their run down the stretch there and took the lead with like 12 or seconds or something like that. Yeah. And neither side called the timeout. Weeping Water got the ball into Cave. She pushed it up the court, split two defenders, went up, laid it in, 6 seconds left to give them the lead back, and then Pleasanton kind of chucked up a shot at the buzzer that didn't really have a chance. So best player on the court and stepped up and made the biggest play of the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, wonder what level she's capable of playing. They look at her talent, thinking physically she's is extremely gifted. I think she played some of her best basketball in this state tournament. It hasn't always been easy to keep it corralled for 3 games straight for her, but she was relatively under control, and as you could see, she's extremely talented.
66 points in 3 state tournament games. That's pretty good.
Yeah. She doesn't have any problems putting the biscuit in the basket. She can score the rock.
And she was really setting up her teammates well, too. Yeah. She made some great passes in that game. Scored the first 10 points of the game, and then assisted the next 7. I think finished with 16 points and 5 assists and the game winner. So heck of a way to cap a phenomenal career for her.
Yeah, we'll jump back to D2 with Humphrey St. Francis, 57-48 over Falls City Sacred Heart. What a difference a year makes for Humphrey St. Francis, right? And it was not so much why, it was why not from a year ago, and this year, much like could be a little bit of a reoccurring theme when we get over to the boys' side with Millard North, kind of a little bit of a redemption tour and finding a way to get it done in D2.
Yeah, and that's you said a year ago they were in the same position and fell short. And Allison Widener said after the game that she grabbed the Baumgart sisters after they got their silver medals and promised them, hey, we're getting it done next year. This isn't happening again. And she kept her promise, and again was a phenomenal player. Finished, I think, 21 in the game, and capped her career with 208 points in her state tournament career, I believe. 8th all time, I think 3rd all time leading scorer in Nebraska, over 2,200 points. So
saw a couple of records. Not the number one records, although when we talk about Markowski, we will talk about her passing a legend like Martise Ivy. But we saw a lot of records being moved up the charts. This was a really good class and a really good year for girls basketball. And listen, 8th all-time scoring in the state tournament. You're in good company.
Yeah, and you look at that class; it's been kind of the same 2-3 teams, kind of rotating spots throughout that the last 4 years there at the top of D2. And credit to St. Francis for getting it done and closing it out and sending Widener out on a high note.
Yeah, you and I were talking off air. She's a better athlete than I think maybe some critics would give her credit for, and a nice athletic profile for Coach Williams heading to Nebraska.
Yeah, and
he needs to get much more athletic along the perimeter and in the backcourt.
Exactly, and that's kind of that was the first time I'd seen Widener play in person. I think I didn't make it to state last year for that class, but just kind of the way she can elevate and get her shot off.
Change direction is pretty good too.
Defensively, getting up in the passing lanes, pressuring ball handlers. St. Francis plays a fun style to watch. They are hectic all over the place. They're pressing, they're trapping, they're running and jumping. The Baumgart sisters are, I think, listed at 5'5", 5'6".
Maybe.
I don't think that they're quite that, but they really get after you defensively and make you work for everything you're going to get. So that was a fun game to watch, and I think she'll fit in well with what Amy Williams wants to do.
Hey, you go over to C2 with Crofton and Ponca. It was some fourth quarter. The scoring output wasn't huge, but it was ultimately the difference in the game, right? With Crofton outscoring Ponca 12-4 in the fourth quarter. Only 4 points for a team that had led most of the way.
And, man, the crazy way to end the day. 36 fouls, 36 turnovers, 25 offensive rebounds in the game. It was just chaos from start to finish in that game. They were competing hard. They were all over the place defensively, up in each other's faces, crashing the glass hard, a lot of fouls, a lot of physical play. And Ponca just couldn't get shots to fall. They had some chances down the stretch. They just couldn't get the ball to go through the rim.
When you're taking a look at how do you think the styles made for that matchup, or in your opinion, the way the game was called? There were a ton of fouls called.
No, I think it was. I mean,
it's the style of play.
Yeah, they were both, like I said, they were up in each other's faces. They're trying to trap. They're trying to press. That kind of style lends itself to fouls, and both sides were really physical. They were giving it to each other, so it wasn't one side was kind of it wasn't necessarily slanted one side or the other. They were both taking part in it.
Another barn burner in Class C1 sees North Bend Central take down Hastings St. Cecilia 51-49. Another game that didn't disappoint. I mean, down to the wire, folks getting their money's worth. Obviously, folks that are familiar with St. Cecilia know the name Kissinger.
Yeah.
She did not disappoint. You talk about a handful. Watching her on both ends of the floor and basically having her duel with Emmanuel as they went back and forth in a highly anticipated matchup.
Both Emmanuels. I mean, you look at Emmanuel's sisters, Sydney and Caitlin, combined for
39.
39. Yeah. Kissinger had 33 of St. Cecilia's 49. Yeah. So the stars definitely showed up. But, Kissinger put her team on her back, going to the rim all day long, gave them the lead. But then in the fourth quarter, the last few possessions, North Bend Central really collapsed on the paint, and Kissinger said nowhere to go. And it's just a tough way to end for that, off of a miss, a rebound, and a foul 90 feet from the basket to go get the go-ahead free throws there. But credit to Emmanuel for knocking them down.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of a surprise, right? I liked Norris as kind of the favorite in this one. I may we'll see. My Class A pick wasn't right either, so maybe it's just me. Maybe I should just stick to other sports. But I was pretty impressed with Elkhorn North. Year one, they've got their first school state championship under their belt. No pressure for Coach Prince going forward. But as long as her daughter and her teammates are around, they'll make another run at this thing for the next couple of foreseeable years.
Well, if you had told me that Brett Prince and Riley Palmer would combine for 15 points going
still win,
I would have said that Norris wins this by double digits. Credit to the rest of the Wolves, and particularly Grace Thompson, stepping up, leading them 14 points. Was huge early on as Palmer and Prince. They each only had one bucket in the first half, but Thompson stepped up at 10 points in the first half to kind of keep to pick up the slack there. And Norris just could never get it going from deep. This is a team that is not afraid to let it fly. Everybody on that team is gonna get up some shots from the perimeter, and they were 2 of 25 from three.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, they had 3 single-digit quarters. Yeah. I think the first, second, and fourth.
Yeah. Yep.
Then they had 9 in the first and fourth. Yep. Just not going to get it done. But you see, did you credit that more to good defense or just the inability, just wasn't their day shooting the basketball?
I think it was a combination of both. Elkhorn North definitely made them work for a lot of their – and what North likes to do, they like to go post and three. Mm-hmm. They have Brianna Stye and a couple other taller girls that they like to put down in the post and then kind of make your decisions where if you double on the post or kick out wide open threes or you single up, and a lot of time they'll be able to score. And Elkhorn North did a great job of battling inside and not even giving up those easy post touches. And because of that, the threes weren't as easy. They had some open looks too. I think Norris had plenty of looks that they would have liked to get back, but at the end of the day, they didn't go in, so credit to Elkhorn North.
Where do you kind of put Molly Ramsey in that discussion of quality girls and her talent level?
She's fun to watch, and I've watched her play volleyball too. She's a terrific libero, and she
plays hard.
She's so good defensively, yeah. And for as small as she is, the way that she's able to stay with opposing ball handlers, get up underneath them, really pressure them. I watched the EMC final, the first game between these two teams, where Norris beat Elkhorn North at Norris, and Ramsey did a phenomenal job of taking Prince out, just limiting her opportunities.
They were tough on her Saturday.
Yeah, and
it was hard for Britt to get any real good looks.
And Norris basically played. They face guarded Britt and kind of limited her touches throughout the game. She still got loose for a couple stretches and gave Elkhorn North a chance, but Ramsey played a huge part in that win, and she was in foul trouble in this one, unfortunately. And also, she let him in scoring, but she had some open looks that, again, just wouldn't fall, just like with everybody else. So she is fun to watch, though. She's a really good high school point guard for what she does defensively and to be able to get in the rim and kick out to those shooters that normally knock them down.
Yeah, speaking of really good point guards, as we jump to A, how fun was Ashoff to watch? We had the family kind of watching together, and even Caleb, who's a pretty tough critic. Well, Ashoff can play, right? I mean, Markowski gets a lot of the headlines for Pius as they hang on to beat Fremont 56-52. But, boy, does she do a lot of the little things. Tapping balls, her low-post entry passes are fantastic. You talk about getting balls in position where only your player can handle it. And Markowski does a good job of flashing. She puts the mitts up. She has exceptional hands. But I came away really, really impressed with Ashoff because it was the other team's backcourt that was drawing all the headlines.
And she had really struggled in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. Offensively, she 2 for 22 from the field in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. And came back, state final, put that in the past, didn't worry about it. Came in.
Really unassuming.
10 points, 4-7 shooting, 8 assists.
8 assists, yeah.
And didn't really turn the ball over much either. So Pius all-time assist leader. She is so much fun to watch. And like you said, just the creativity, the ability to pass off the bounce, the way that driving in and just can throw it up on a dime to where only Markowski can catch and finish it. Markowski's really good, but the fact that Pius got to pair her with a point guard Ashoff that is so creative at getting the ball to
How about
Markowski.
how they weathered the storm early?
Yeah.
It was a super start from Fremont, and you're like, this is what we've seen this Fremont team. This is what they're capable of, right? A couple of games with 15 3-pointers. Like, they are very capable of lighting you up. It is a loosey-goosey bunch, but they just couldn't get it going. And McCabe in particular.
Yeah, they 21-7 start. They hit 7 of their first 10 shots, and 5 of those were threes. So they came out. Everybody is making plays, and like you said, everybody but McCabe early on was the one scoring, and she just never quite got going. She hit a 3 at the buzzer from the east from
darn near the logo.
Yeah, but they were down 7 at that point, so it didn't really matter. But tough day for her. But Fremont. They got off to a great start. Pius kind of pushed back, and then Fremont was able to hold on, take a lead into halftime. And then in the third quarter, it's just inevitable. Markowski took over, and that's the same thing.
You think those touches were intentional? Goodness.
Yeah.
Just feeding the post.
And it was everybody, like Addison, Ashoff.
Very underrated, in my opinion.
Miriam Miller, everybody, they were doing a good job of moving the ball around and making the passes from different areas to make it tougher because Fremont did a great job she had 8 points on 4 of 8 shooting in the first half.
I thought as a whole, the tournament is for as good a player as she is, she was forced to work. She earned her keep those 3 games.
100%.
Did Alexis Markowski.
And you look at just her second half stats of the tournament.
Yeah.
They were all tournament stats. And that's how incredible she is because Central, Millard North, and Fremont all did a great job of limiting her opportunities in the first half and making her inefficient.
Just didn't get a ton of clean looks. They would put 2 girls on her. They would, kind of combo whether help was coming from the baseline or from the ball entry side. It was very, very difficult for her to get going. But a testament to her, not in 2 things. 1, mental, 1, physical. Number 1, her ability to bounce back emotionally just doesn't waver. She was clapping it up on the way to the locker room Saturday night, and you're thinking, she's not going anywhere. She's here for the long haul, another 16 minutes, so buckle up. But the other thing, her commitment to fitness and being in fantastic shape.
Yeah.
You look at the transformation from a year ago, and she was as dominant a year ago. But just her ability to play hard for 32 minutes is really, really impressive.
Yeah. And that was the case. Third quarter, 13-3 run for Pius to close out the quarter. Alexis had 11 of those points. She also had 4 boards and 2 blocks in that stretch. So just absolutely took over the game, dominated, gave Pius the lead, and then they were able to hold on throughout the fourth quarter. She finished with 27 points and 19 rebounds, 4 blocks, 2 steals. In her 6 state tournament games over the last 2 years, she totaled 151 points and 89 rebounds.
Well, when you get 27 like she did on day one, you're well on your way. That's her version of Windex, right? Yeah. Just cleaning the glass. I'm not sure whether I'm more impressed by her deft, like her hands, or her footwork. Both are fantastic, especially at the high school level.
And we both kind of called a little bit. We said Millard North size and length, Omaha Central size and length.
Could be a problem.
And it was early on. Second half, she kind of realized how they were playing her, adjusted, and figured out a way to finish stronger and to take that length kind of out of the equation.
Yeah, her ability to play harder, longer, ultimately is the difference.
Just wears everybody down.
She does.
And
there were a couple of times she was spent, right? Yeah. I mean, she's got both hands tugging on her shorts, and it was, one was after her 22nd rebound against Millard North, and I'm thinking, she's relentless. Yeah. Like, just a ton of respect for just the way she approaches the game, and Ashoff, who wasn't going to take a back seat to McCabe or anybody else. I thought Charlie Earth was really good for Fremont. I'd like to maybe see a few more touches.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. And Taylor McCabe is one of the best shooters in the state. She's one of the best players overall in the state. Like, they live with her taking shots all year long, and you're going to live with that. Yeah. If you're going to win, it's going to be because she had a big game. That being said, she didn't quite have it. You would have liked to see a couple more shots go to Earth, and Earth finished with 11 points, pretty efficient day. And I think that gave her 1,000 on the dot for her career. So
I've liked to see Macy Bryant maybe handle it away from the basket a little bit, see if you could draw Markowski away from the basket.
And she did knock down a couple of three-pointers
especially
doing
early,
that. Yeah.
right? And she was going to get a good 2-3 feet to shoot it. And I'm just like, how she can handle it a little bit, kind of bring it. There were a couple of little things early on where I was like, gosh, it would have been interesting. I wonder what would happen if they had it to do over again. But unfortunately, you don't. You can say that to the state wrestlers. You can say that to the teams that are playing basketball. On that stage, you only get one time to get it right. And Pius did.
Yeah, and it was a phenomenal championship game. I think we got the best matchup that we could have gotten. I think Millard South just kind of with injury to Juliana Jones, they're a little bit short-handed there.
They got in a foul trouble against Fremont. That didn't help, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Cora Olson gets 3 early. Yeah. And picks up the 4th in the third quarter. And was it Lemon that had 4 as well? Which, I mean, you have to kind of – and when you play that style, they get up in you, they press, they run, they jump. You're going to get some of that. I know she wasn't in love with – Cora Olson wasn't in love with her 4th foul. It was a tough angle. But when you kind of have drawn that style during the course of the game, those are the kind of calls you don't get.
And you just have to be smarter once you do get in that foul trouble with some of the things that you're doing. Don't take the risk. Don't even give the impression of a push-off. Don't go for a steal.
Yeah.
Don't
she held her
crash
hands
the
up
offensive
high
glass.
like thinking, hey, my hand. It's like, it was already blown,
Yeah.
And Fremont was fearless.
Yeah.
And that one. And there was just – I was really impressed regardless of class, with the quality of play. The guys get all the run in terms of the young Division I talent and blah, 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 but those girls are handling their business.
Yeah, and I think both Ania Jones, Britt Prince, and a handful of others throughout the tournament showed that the future
host of sophomores over there at Millard South.
The future is very bright for girls basketball in the state, and I think this was a great way to close out the season.
Yeah, you flip over for the boys here. We'll try to work quick. Is there a matchup that, first of all, the level of surprise with the 3 Millards represented, you'll have nobody from the Metro. Just top seeds had a hard time holding. Only 3 of the 7 districts did the top seed hold.
Yeah, the last time we talked was going into that district final, and I had to cover Nebraska down in Lincoln that night, and I was just following along on Twitter and like seeing the scores and the updates. It's like, what is happening tonight? Yeah. We were watching the end of the Pius Lincoln East game. Connor Happer pulled up a stream of that. So like it was just a chaotic day, and you end up with the 4 lower seeds all had to pull off upsets to make it to the field. So credit to them for digging down and going and punching their tickets.
You know what's going to be interesting too is Millard South, Millard North in that 1-8. If you remember the first game, Millard South played them tough, led at one point in the first half, the majority of that half, and they won't back down. I'll be curious to see how that game is officiated, because that backcourt of Stanger and Stanger, they will touch, clutch, grab. They will be relentless, and there's no love lost between those two schools.
Yeah, and Millard South is, I think, playing a lot better now than they were earlier in the season at any point.
That's that team. Yeah. We talked about them last week, where I didn't know if it was just because they were fresh in my mind of having them seeing them beat Westside, but I said, gosh, they're better. They have better talent than that record.
Yeah.
Right? And now, if you're going to play your best ball, you'd rather play it at the end of the year, right?
Yep. So credit for Coach Lucian there for getting that out of them, because it looked like they were in for a lost season. Yeah. Midway through, their best players were struggling. The team as a whole was struggling. They found a way to figure some things out.
We'll talk to him tomorrow morning. I'm really curious to ask him about kind of the course and the trajectory of that season, because it could have went south in a hurry.
Yep. And then the other side of that half of the bracket, unfortunately for you, another tough one in districts, or Westside Falls to Millard West.
Saw that firsthand, obviously.
Yeah. So they'll get a matchup.
They played harder. And I know that sounds a little bit like coach speak, but it's not. Every 50-50 ball, every loose ball, they were ripping away simultaneous rebounds. And Dom Hum really answered the dinner bell. They pressured and harassed a couple of weeks ago when Westside blew them out. And you know what? They were very, very smart. Used a lot of high ball screens. He really shook free, getting different defenders to switch. It really limited, I think, what Westside defensively was able to do, because he basically was single guarded by Caleb the first time around, and he took some hard ball screens. Yeah. They were not going to let that happen again, and Dom, almost from the get-go, was getting downhill and was going to say, nah, not today.
And they did it without Evan Meyersick, who you figured was one of their big advantages when you look at these teams on paper, 6'5", ability to finish inside.
He got off to the great start against him the first time, and he kind of tweaked his knee a little. Wasn't the same after that. But between he and Conway in that first game, you got the sense where they could be a little bit of a problem. Yeah. This time around, it was the backcourt.
And now, fortunately, Evan Meyersick is planning to play this week, so good to him. Get them full strength, and they'll match up with Lincoln Pies the 10th in the first round, who earned the wild card after, for whatever reason, Lincoln East just has their number this year.
Yes, they do.
Went 2-1 against them, and they almost won the first game without Carter Glenn. So I think Pius is very happy to see that Lincoln East is on the other side of the bracket heading in this tournament, and that should be a fun one in the 4 or 5 matchup with the point guards there, with Sam Hoiberg going against Dom Hum, like you mentioned, Sam Hostreiter going against Meyersick now that he's back. It looks like a fairly even type of matchup, I think, just when you look at kind of the roster makeup and all that. So that should be a fun one in the first round.
I agree. On the other side, it will be Papillion South and Omaha Creighton Prep.
Yeah.
How about Papio South's run sans Denier Dempsey?
Yeah, it's been a minute. And we said it before, but credit to Daniel Brocale, who's almost 18 points a game now after really stepping it up down the last
he hit
stretch.
The X button.
Yeah, Graham Kasut, double-digit score there, helping him out. So they've made a great run, and credit, again, to Coach User there for figuring things out on the fly, losing such a big part of your team, and finding a way to get better down the stretch and win some big games.
And then, not to be outdone, there's this one team that I think they're the defending state champs. That's right?
Yeah, that is.
Does anybody really talk about Bellevue West like a normal defending state champ?
I think it's more – this whole year I think it's kind of more been about the Millard North, Bellevue West, kind of the collision course.
Yeah.
You would think, like, after that 16-0 run to steal the title last year for Bellevue West. I think everybody's been wondering this seemed like, all right, obviously we've got a couple of regular season matchups, and they went back and forth. But I think everybody's been waiting to see those two face off in the final. But we kind of glossed over Creighton Prep there, but I think they showed that, like, hey, this isn't a 2-horse race. It's going to be tough for Bellevue West to earn that ticket right back to the final, because Prep pushed them twice and then beat Millard North at the Stable during the regular season. So
if you're Lincoln East, how are you trying to approach this one?
That'll be a phenomenal point guard matchup. I'll start with that, with Chucky Hepburn going against Carter Glenn, who is 20 a game this year. Just
almost
been phenomenal.
And is probably a peer from a mental toughness standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Carter Glenn is the real deal.
Nobody has a better pull-up jumper than Carter Glenn at this point, and he can score from 3 and at the rim, too. 3-level scorer there. And like you said, toughness is through the roof. The key is, are they going to get somebody else to step up? Are they going to have a Marfisi knock down some shots? Are they going to have a Henriksen catching and finishing?
You want a sneaky one? Braden McPhail has got to alleviate some of the on-the-ball pressure.
100%.
Right? Like, he's got to be that guy that can bring the ball up occasionally, help with some of the pressure, because Chucky's going to be a handful on whomever he's guarding, and at this point you got to assume it's Glenn.
Yeah, and he's a crafty player, and he's a good defender too, so it'll be fun to see Glenn and McPhail kind of go up and guarding Josiah Delfer
all
and Chucky
5'8",
Hepburn.
140 pounds of McPhail, who gives up a lot of size to guys, but he is a tenacious defender.
Yeah, so they're going to make Bellevue West work. It's just a matter of, can Lincoln East find enough offensive firepower to keep up? Because East doesn't have a Frankie Fiddler to go with.
They've got to keep
Carter
that
Glenn.
game in the 50s.
Yeah,
it gets much above that, and it gets to be really, really difficult. Real quick, you want to run through a little bit of B, some of the matchups early that interest you. You got to start with Elkhorn and Platteview, right? Because we're on is this part 3?
At least, yeah.
Or 4? I know there was the early there was the overtime and then the holiday tournaments. This might be number 4.
You might be right. I'll look real quick on that. But yeah, that's the
Plattview's
had
4 success
there.
Right? And it's no coincidence that that's probably the most I guess, competitive, would you say?
And as
I would. I
be,
think it's a toss-up.
So 57-55 in overtime, Elkhorn won the first matchup. 59-54, Platteview won the second matchup in the tournament.
Yep.
And
that may be it.
Yeah.
This is the rubber match.
Rubber match here.
So I with that, it's obviously the style of play. Platteview as a team hasn't met a shot they don't like. Elkhorn plays it a little closer to the vest, a little more buttoned up, even though they've got some fantastic athletes.
Well, it's interesting. The score is basically the same both games, just flipped. 57-55 versus 59-54. So neither side, I think, was really able to kind of dominate necessarily the pace of play and everything. They both kind of got what they wanted for stretches in both of those games. So it'll just come down to how well guys are playing.
I think it's the role guys.
Yeah.
Maybe a Weeblehouse, who's the last third of the season has shot it well, 60% from the floor. He's getting them 11 or 12 a night in that stretch. Because we know about the law firm. We've talked about Riley and Draper a ton. And, of course, Connor Milliken. It will be the balance of Elkhorn and who else can chip in. I mean, if they let Milliken go for his average, it gets interesting. You've got to keep him, it sounds funny, but in the low 20s. Don't you? And it doesn't sound right.
You'll take that being a win is it's a testament to what kind of a player Connor is.
It has to be a hard, inefficient, low 20 kind of night, because if you let him going, he single-handedly can shoot you out of the gym.
And they're going to have to – they cannot lose him within that zone. No. They're going to have to mark him all game long, know where he is. Do not let him – because I talked about they played Beatrice in their conference tournament, and they defended him phenomenally in the first quarter and gave him just a little bit of space to start the second quarter, knocked down a three, and then he was off and running. Another 20-point-plus game, dominated double-double. So
how fantastic is the story of Blair? I mean, that is unbelievable. They go to Alliance and pull off the stunners, 16 versus a 1, and they're on their way to Lincoln. That's the beauty of district play.
Yeah, it is, and I don't think anybody pegged that one, but credit to them. They took advantage of their draw and did what they need to. Again, just like some of those teams in Class A that pulled off those upsets. Blair is kind of right in that same mix where shocking everybody, and now they get a chance to show what they can do on the big stage against number 1 seed Norris.
Yeah. So it's interesting how the wild card points sorted itself out in B, because I think most would make Scott the favorite, but much like in Class A and the defending state champs Bellevue West aren't the top seed.
Yeah.
How important in B do you think the draws are?
Well, that's interesting. I think we'll see. I think that 2-3, like if Mount Michael and Scott both take advantage.
How about those twos for the 2-3s?
Yeah. Like that's going to be a really
Mount Michael spent more weeks at number 1 than anybody. Scott played the best late.
That's a final level game in the semifinals if seedings hold true there. So
that could be Bellevue West and Creighton Prep in Class A.
And Platteview and Elkhorn, I mean, that's a strong 4 or 5 as well. So I think we kind of like that top echelon of Class B, but Elkhorn, they kind of had some struggles here and there, and Platteview is still
very
really
capable.
Yeah. And Platteview is still very young, so I think the 1 seed is probably a little bit important for Norris, maybe getting slightly.
Yeah, because you only get one of those other two on the other side.
Exactly. Man, these semifinals in Class B should be phenomenal. Again,
do you have a dark horse? Is there such a thing in B?
I think any of those top 5 teams wouldn't shock me. I not to discount Waverly, Beatrice, or Blair here, but I think kind of those 5 have been. We've seen some of those others kind of jump up and be in that mix. I think those 5, just in terms of you look at the rosters and the talent and the experience, I think those 5 are probably the 5 best teams that you probably would look to bet on there. So I don't know that any of them surprising or winning would totally shock me, but I would probably take one of those top 3 seeds for sure.
Before we wind this bad boy down, roughly 6,100 can get into PBA from an attendance standpoint. Who do you think most benefits from the crowd. We'll start in A. You have the tremendous following of Millard North. They may not want the pressure. The Flock Squad at Bellevue West travels in packs. They're used to the big stage. Prep has the Birdcage, which will travel. In A, who do you think benefits the most from the ability to have 6,100?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's been interesting kind of throughout the season seeing the evolution. Well, first going back to state tournament last year where you had just the small groups of family on either side, like seeing the state tournament this week with not full crowds, but enough of a crowd to really make a difference has been fun to see. And then kind of throughout the season, the progression of, okay, just a few family members. Okay, we're letting a few students in now. Okay, we're letting a student section in now. Okay, we're allowing general admission for some of these games. It's been kind of cool to see. Hopefully everybody's staying safe. And I don't know. I think
it's hard to go against that Birdcage, though.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think kind of the Bellevue West and Prep there, like you said, the Millard North is kind of interesting because
they're the rock stars,
and you'll have a lot of fans, I think, kind of jumping on the bandwagon. Then you also have a lot of fans potentially kind of going against the juggernaut team. That's kind of always how it the case when you have a really talented team. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what the split is of the crowd for Millard North's games. But yeah, I think that'll definitely help out Bellevue West and Prep for sure.
I can tell you there'll be very few left in Platteview for their tip. Blair may bring the whole bunch, including a couple of the dealerships that are located there. It's just that time of the year where fans can really rally, and it's a one-shot deal.
And I thought Elkhorn North student section,
hey,
they were phenomenal.
Tell you what, they got something brewing there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the girls' programs are a little ahead of the game.
Yeah.
We knew that, but we do like the hirings 100%. On the boys' side, football, baseball, basketball. I mean, they've got something brewing there. The school spirit, that's fantastic color scheme aside. That Carolina blue is legit. I'm a little biased though as a Tar Heel fan, but they got something going.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to kind of this man setting such a high bar with Ann Prince's squad taking home the title this year. I think that volleyball program is going to be pretty darn good. They've got some really young players.
How about
too.
the young talent?
Yeah, and Reese Booth, that setter, played a key role off the bench for the basketball team too.
Good to see her. Daughter. Good to see Coach Booth's team get the brooms out so she could get a move on.
Yeah. She just barely made in time and saw that tweet. I'm really happy for her that she was able to see
5-6 minutes to spare, right?
And Reese played well in the tournament. She played an important role, so it's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, this time next week we will have crowned more champions, and that will be in high school basketball. The man, the myth, the legend, Jacob Padilla will have you covered, as will I, Damon Benning. Don't miss us.
A Hurrdat Media Production.